This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. I first met Jennifer in 2015 when we both were in the Gulf Coast Leadership Institute put together by the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. I admired Jen's leadership then and still do today. Like one of her favorite quotes, aim for excellence, not perfection. For more on leaders like Jennifer, read The Business Observer and subscribe. Go to businessobserverfl.com/subscribe. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Jennifer Vigne, CEO of the Education Foundation of Sarasota County. Jennifer, thanks for being here and welcome.
Thank you so much, Mark. I have to say it's a little more intimidating when you have the microphone and I have to respond. So it's great to be a part of this today with you.
I'm so glad you're here. And yes, I have been interviewed a few times and I much prefer the interviewing than being the interviewee.
Heck yes. Heck yes. But
Yes.
be kind to me.
Yes, I will. And for our audience, Jennifer is referring to the podcast of the Education Foundation of Sarasota County. So when you're done listening to this podcast, check that one out. What is the official name? Give a plug. What's the official name of that podcast?
Called Education Conversations. And you can find it on all sorts of different handles. I don't have to do a big old plug, but yeah, Education Conversations.
Excellent. Good. Okay, so Jen, you and I have known each other and been friends for almost 10 years. We actually met in the Gulf Coast Leadership Institute class. I was looking back. Can you believe that was 2015? We were in that class together?
I cannot. And here we are still aspiring to figure out how to be good leaders, right?
Exactly. We're going to solve it all in the next 20 minutes, though. We're going to talk about your leadership style and kind of what you've learned in your career. But you've done a lot of interesting things in your career. I think you have. You've been in real estate, in marketing, in banking, and obviously now education and fundraising. So give us kind of the Jennifer Vigne elevator pitch. How did you get to where you are today?
Okay, first of all, we're on a floor of only like maybe 3 stories because we don't want the long elevator pitch because given my age, it could take a long time. But that's really when you think about the history of all of my work. I started off early in my career in banking and then into real estate, but I quickly pivoted after a few years going into education. And that's where I really started to round out a lot of my development work, if you will, the fundraising aspect.
Yeah.
And that completely grounded my love for education. And then so as I was growing and evolving in kind of my fundraising-esque-ness, if you will, that's what then kind of pulled me towards the Education Foundation where I've been now. I'm starting my 10th year there, which is shocking. So again, age is not on my side, but that's kind of the circuitous route. But what's so great about it is it really pulled, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Just so many of the different things I learned early on have really come to bear fruit in this particular position.
Yeah. And so before we get into the specifics of what those lessons were, what led you to the Education Foundation? Was it a sort of a job posting? Was it networking? And 10 years, by the way, congratulations. But what led you to that position?
So interestingly, it was really relationships. And quite honestly, it was from a dear friend, Stacy Corley, who was also in this work and business.
Yes.
She knew my heart was in education. She knew I was looking for a leadership opportunity. What I did not know at that time was that the Education Foundation was actually looking for a position, or someone to take that role. And so she made a couple of calls. Someone had reached out to her. And then to make a long story short, it was like hand in glove. And I really attribute Stacy Corley and Tom Koski for kind of forging the opportunity in my path. Yeah.
Tom Koski's done some amazing work in Sarasota County for sure. Not that Stacy hasn't, they both have, but those are some good people to be connected with.
No, it's great to be not only have those kind of relationships, but to just see how they're both so willing to create opportunities for people, no matter what the interests are. So they're both just great givers. Yeah.
Excellent. And the Education Foundation, I mean, it kind of is in the name, but tell us, what does the Education Foundation do? What's the core mission of the foundation?
Yeah, well, when I say it's just like scripted, the mission, we enhance the potential of students, we promote excellence in teaching, and we inspire innovation in education guided by strategic philanthropy. But what we always want people to know is if you care about kids and you want to see that they do better off tomorrow than what they did today, if you care about thriving communities and understanding the relationship and the linkage that education has on creating prosperity for all community members, then think and consider the Education Foundation, because we are the kind of the linkage of trying to help birth a lot of those realities to life.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's similar in a way. You mentioned Stacy Corley, who is now the CEO of the Sarasota Memorial Healthcare Foundation, and so they're sort of the financial fundraising arm of the hospital, and you're the schools. And the reason I bring them together is both of those, the hospital and the schools, are like A rated, right? They're these nationally known organizations. But tell me about your role in terms of, you have to be relentless. You can't just rest on being A. You have to continuously do the work required to maintain that. I mean, how do you approach that? That, yeah, we're A now, but we have to be A tomorrow.
Well, and there's a point I think that's important to clarify, and something that's really distinct between like Sarasota Memorial Healthcare Foundation and the Education Foundation, and that is we're not necessarily the fundraising arm of the school district. Everything we do, we wake up every day, and the only thing we care about is making sure that public education is solid and that the students and teachers have all of the necessary resources and supports that they need. So we're definitely aligned with the school district, and we work in partnership with them and have for 37 years. So we value and honor and cherish that relationship. But we also see education has some distinct uniquenesses about it. That's education's changing. The
Yeah.
world is changing. And this isn't just our role isn't just limited to the augmentation of what tax dollars don't provide, because and we know that that's important. I mean, we advocate for like the referendum that's coming up on the ballot. We know the funding is a necessary and much needed component, but there's also a gap. There's a gap between what it is that students and families are looking for, what is the gap of what teachers need so that they all can thrive, and we're just trying to help ensure and look at new solutions and ways that you can incubate programs of promise. So think of us more as like a research and development arm for and on behalf of the school district to do better and greater things.
More as research and development arm. I like that. Okay, so we're gonna go back to your career, and you talked about, you found your passion and what you love in terms of the education. But how did you sort of, what was your mindset? How did you get to the point where you even wanted a leadership job? What were who were some of your mentors along the way that you said, hey, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, so I definitely did not wake up and just said, "Hey, I want to be a leader. Where are the leadership jobs in this
Take me to your
community and
leader.
help me." Yeah, I can definitely tell you, because the irony is I really don't even like the spotlight. And yet, as we all know,
Yeah.
oftentimes the CEO is it is the voice, it is the champion, it is the one that has to get behind, like you are right now, behind the
Yep.
microphone. And I'm like, I don't really want that. But what I do know is that I'm deeply passionate about affecting positive change, particularly for kids that don't have all of the opportunities that others might have. I just think, oh my goodness, every person has such great potential. And when you see those missed opportunities, when you see that potential not realized, that breaks my heart. And
Yeah.
so for me, that was the impetus and the drive and the passion that led me to do this work and continue to do this work, because I just that it really comes from a level of care and concern than it does from I just want to be, the top dog, if you will.
So almost an accidental CEO. It was the mission, not the CEO-ness of it, that drew you to it.
100%. And I'll
Yeah.
I'll do whatever it takes. People will ask me, often, like, what do you want to do next or something like that. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't even know what next looks like, because the work at the Education Foundation is so enriching and so challenging, so fulfilling, but we're still not there.
Yeah.
We're still haven't reached kind of that place. And maybe we won't in my lifetime, because again, we're looking at some systemic challenges.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm investing all of myself 110% to just further this to the best of my ability.
Well, and sort of a segue a little bit. We're such a world of what's next, right? We don't focus on, you think about like just my career when I first started out. Everything in newspapers was you had to be at a bigger newspaper. I started at a really small town newspaper in upstate New York, and then a little bit bigger in Pennsylvania. And family and friends were like, "What's next? What's next? What's next? Do you want to go to TV?" That was always a thing considered like better TV. And then there was sort of like this is the late '90s. I'm like, I don't want to be in TV. I want to be a writer. Anyway, so that's a
But you
long
got your video podcast, Mark. Just keep
right. And
that in
now I'm
mind.
doing video podcasting 25 years later. But we are like that what's next world. So but as you've been this leader and as you've been a leader of this organization in prior jobs, what have you found to be good leaders? What are some characteristics of good leaders, whether that's in the foundation or just in your life experiencing people?
Yeah, and that's such an interesting and timely question since I think so much of our community conversations are around, what is leadership? How does leadership define you? And what makes a good leader? Particularly when we're looking at like really big problems in this world that we're trying to solve. And so it's almost like, hey, can we all get along a little bit better? But I think at the end of the day, for me, when I do that gut check of what leadership is, it really is all based on values. Can I look at myself in the mirror? Am I driving? Am I leading with integrity? Am I work? Am I able to be uncomfortable? Um, am I able to get comfortable with the uncomfortable? I think
Yeah.
there's a phrase around that people have talked around. But at the end of the day, I mean, it really is the integrity, the character, the values that people uphold because there's such truth. There is such truth in people will be what they see. There is such truth that kids will model what they see, they will emulate. And if we're really going to invest in the next generation, if we really speak and say we care about that, then our behavior and our actions, our mindsets, all of that actually will pay dividends. And so for me, that's the definition of how one can develop into becoming a leader.
Yeah, that's so true, especially all of it's true, 100%, but especially the part about modeling what others see. I know you and your husband are parents of three adult grown children, and my one is 16, and I've often seen, even at this age, I have to remember he takes everything I say and he knows and he's listening. And I'm sure it was just, I want to ask you, was it the same with your kids where you have to be on, right? Because they're going to regurgitate what you say and how you say it and what your disposition is.
Well, it's so true, and so often we recognize those moments usually when we make mistakes. We
Yes.
usually when we fall short, when usually we're not showing our best selves, when
Yep.
things and then you see it come out and you're just like, "Oh my goodness, like what did I do?" So, not to say that we live in regret, but it's those things that unfortunately then it's when the mirror comes back at you and
Yes.
then you're kind of caught like that. The discipline, the self-discipline that you have to kind of create within yourself is one of the hardest things. How can you develop humility? How do you develop self-control? How do you develop patience?
Yeah.
These are not things you just come birthed with. These are the
Yes.
things that you work towards.
Yeah, it's I had to learn, and my wife, who's always right, obviously, has often told me that it's okay to not be perfect in front of our son, especially when he was younger and he would see me, maybe lose my temper, or lose my cool, or not say the best, not be the best version of myself given a certain time, but that he needs to see that because we're human. How have you grown as a leader in developing that humility that you talk about?
Well, I can relate to what and Elise, your wife, she is right all the time. So
Yeah,
very smart of you to
100%.
recognize that. That's really good. So what I would say though is recognizing that as you mentioned, we're not aiming for perfection, but by golly, we better be aiming for excellence. So from a leadership, from a management standpoint, I think that is something I absolutely communicate to all of the team members is we've got to be striving for excellence every day because I do think that when you look at kind of the dynamic of life, you're either growing, you're dying, you're giving, you're taking, there
Yep.
that whole pendulum, you're on one side or the other. And so if I'm going to choose, if I'm going to choose the way I'm going to live my life, I'm going to choose to be a giver. I'm going to choose to work harder. I'm going to choose this. And I think that striving for that excellence and giving yourself grace when things don't go
Yes.
well, and understanding that you actually can learn from the failures and you can learn from the mistakes, because some of those are adversity. Sometimes is the greatest teacher of all, right?
100%, definitely. Yeah, it's a good point, to strive for excellence every day, but also give yourself the grace when you don't have the best day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and we're all running into those kind of
Yeah.
things, more and more, and so
Yes.
then we're and I don't know. I think at the end of the day, when if you're gonna really if you're striving to be a leader, and I don't think that's truly the destination people should be aiming for, because you might see that you'll fall short of that because you're not pushing forward in a purpose-driven way. You might be looking a little bit more surface level, so it
Yeah.
may not find to be as fulfilling for you, but at any rate, in the way in which you move forward, you just have to be mindful of just the way in which roadblocks, um, challenges will come your way. But what is going to test what's going to stand true? And that is, do you know who you are inside of you? Do you know what you stand for? Do you know what you're willing to represent? So that we're not all at the end of the day becoming just a division of two and
Yeah.
conforming to one or the other.
Yeah.
Life is far too
Yes.
beautiful to be masked
Yes.
behind that. So, anyways, I'm
I
just maybe I'm being a little too topical on that, just given the time period that we're in right now. So, my apologies for that.
We are, and we're as we're recording this, it is we are recording this literally 24 hours before 2024 election day. So there's a lot on everybody's mind for sure. But you talked about obstacles. Tell us about a career, or a setback, a mulligan, something in your career that you bounced back from, and what you learned from it.
Well, there are probably far more than the show would allow. I mean, that's because again, the more you're willing to take a risk, the greater chances of you not, hitting a home run.
Yeah.
So I certainly have a litany of missed opportunities. I do remember one situation earlier in my career where I was met with a challenge that really hit me kind of again back to the values. And it was an opportunity where I really had nothing to gain, but I felt at the time I had everything to lose. And so the question was, am I going to stand up and speak out on something that I felt was a wrong, if you
Yeah.
will, or something that was it was against my value system, or am I going to just hold it and just run with it, knowing that I just didn't want to lose everything? And I chose to stand up and speak out, and it did change. And there was a lot of things that I had to face that
Yeah.
I wasn't that. So that was absolutely a setback. But at the same time, I don't think it would have brought me to where I am today. And so again, I get maybe I'm an effervescent encourager. I just think those kind of things do lead you down pathways that are guiding you into different directions over the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right, and it taught you resilience as well, right? You made a decision, and then you have to live with the decision.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And sometimes it's just not comfortable, but
Yep.
yeah, at least I can sleep at night, right? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes. 100%. Good compass there for sure. Okay, so go back to Education Foundation. You guys got a lot of things going on, including a podcast. But as we are getting toward the end of 2024, what are some goals? What's on the horizon? What can we look for in the Education Foundation of Sarasota County in 2025?
yeah, that's a great question. And we're going to continue to work in that R&D space. We want to continue to incubate programs of promise. We want to see more kids graduating with a plan beyond high school. We want to make sure they get those wraparound supports that can help them overcome the barriers. We want to work with the kids that may be somewhat disenfranchised, if you will, from a system that has just it's hard. It's for a
Yeah.
lot of kids. It's just hard, and it's not bad. It's just hard, and we want to be a source of respite and support for them on a grander scale. We've been talking to some community folks. We are looking at how we can expand our work to make sure that if families, students, if teachers need to reach us, that it's not just whenever the schools are open, but it's, in the evenings, it's on the weekends, it's in the summer, it's on the breaks.
Yeah.
We want to be that resource. And so it means that we're going to have a stronger physical presence. What that looks like, we're still working through all that. And then for the Uber, aspirational is we are exploring. There's a lot happening in the teacher housing, affordable housing. That's probably been a conversation not only has the Observer reported on, but
Sure.
our community nationwide, we're dealing with the lack of affordable housing, particularly for workforce populations. And so we're giving an eye and convening conversations right now around, does the Education Foundation have a role to play in this? Is there possibilities that we can address, a teacher housing solution that again is a public-private partnership, but what's energizing is to be able to have creative problem-solving conversations with
Yeah.
a wide sector of people to apply design thinking, because then you can really start thinking of solutions that aren't typical of within systems or within boundaries. So we got to be kind of, looking outside the boundaries.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that will pan out. I can tell you we sure have a heart for it and an eye for it, but we want to make sure we're doing it in a way that is demonstrating responsible stewardship as well.
Yeah, it's certainly whatever industry you're in. I know as a reporter and editor in the business community, affordable housing is what I hear constantly, whether, just today, as I said, early November, I was with a roofing executive, and it came up about his employees and finding, and obviously teachers and healthcare workers and first responders, and a big, big issue. So that's good to hear that you guys are on the front lines of it.
Yeah, we're willing to, generate the conversation. We're willing to present ideas, and we're willing to be the, leading in front with the risk, the shared risk, if
Yeah.
you will. We don't want to be irresponsible,
Yes.
but we're willing to show the courage necessary to foster the
Sure.
conversations. And if a solution is something totally different, that's great. Because at the end of the day, what I care about is that there's a solution.
That the teachers are there, 100%. All right, Jennifer, before we let you go, we have 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Okay. What do you prefer, a beach or mountain vacation?
Mark, I'm a Florida girl that loves the beach, and I do all my vacations hiking in the mountains. How am I supposed to answer that, man? I need to be like in California, maybe northern somewhere that gives me the best of both worlds. But that's what I need. I can't do either or, man. I'm sorry. I
You
just
have to
messed
choose
you up on-
both. Earlier, I mentioned how my life partner, my spouse Elise, is always right. Does Dan get a say? Does your life partner get a say in the beach or mountain vacation?
Yeah, my 30-year husband, great partner for sure in life. And the upside is we both agree on this. So
Nice.
there's a lot of things we don't agree on, but this we do. So
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, next question. How many hours of sleep do you need a night so that you're not cranky the next day?
I need my sleep. You protect sleep. This goes back to self-discipline, man. So you go to bed 9 p.m. Do not invite me to the late night parties. I'm not your person. I am definitely, but you want to do a 5 a.m. run? I'm with you. Yep.
Discipline on sleep. Huge, huge, huge. Awesome. Okay, last question. Who are 2 people you would love to have dinner with, dead or alive?
Oh my gosh. I would love to have dinner. Okay, gosh, this is great. That is a great question. I would love to have dinner with Brene Brown. That would be one that I would answer. And then I would love to have dinner with Teddy Roosevelt. And let's do it together, because Brene Brown speaks about Teddy Roosevelt quote about being in the arena, and I'd love to see if Teddy agrees with Brene.
Yeah.
I could just sit there and absorb the whole enlightening conversation.
That is awesome. Those are 2 great people, and shout out to Brene Brown's podcasts, which are amazing. And she actually has a button or a site. Invite her, Brene Brown, onto your podcast, which I have done, but she has not come on yet. So Brene, if you're listening, please come on the From the Corner Office podcast. Okay, but enough of that plug. Jennifer Vigne, CEO of the Education Foundation of Sarasota County. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
So great to be with you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.